Boom! How's going? How's going? It is I again, TJ, your boy, and welcome to the channel M5 Property Addicts. And today we're going to be talking about bad and good debt. And a lot of us, we are trying to figure out, is debt good? Well, I can tell you from a guy who's been on both sides of the fence, having the opportunity of utilizing what is called good debt and utilizing what is also called bad debt. Some of you could be wondering, well, maybe debt is bad. Well, not all debt is bad, but I'm going to share with you today within this video whether actually all debt is bad. Potentially your father, grandfather, or someone else, maybe even your aunt, have said to you, debt is bad. You should never have any form of debt. They were right if you do not have the education of managing the debt. That's what it's all about. At one point, I was in bad debt. I want to start telling you about a little bit of my story. Back in the days, I didn't know how to manage debt. Yes, it's correct. If you don't know how to manage debt, at some point, it will just be rising and rising and rising until it gets up to here and boom, everything falls apart. Yes, and that is called bad debt. So let's start defining what is bad debt. In my view, bad debt is when you have gone out there to all the banks and so on and you have borrowed some money. Within that borrowing of money, you have gone to utilize it on anything that does not give you any income. That is bad debt. So what it basically means now is that whatever that you have now borrowed, it means that you now need to look for some form of money or income that you now need to supplement to pay for that debt. Let's bring it into real life. Let's assume that today you go to any of the banks and then you get yourself a credit card. Well, a credit card is good debt. Yes, it is. And I'll tell you why it is a good debt. At some point, you then get to have an opportunity of maybe having 20,000, 50,000 on this credit card. Let's just say 100. But in the meantime, what you do with this credit card is that you start buying groceries, you start buying clothes. Maybe you're short on buying, on paying off something, and then you take or you dig money in there and you go on a holiday and it continues. And all you're doing is utilizing this credit card until to a point when it's totally maxed out. Or maybe let's not even say that it is maxed out. Maybe you are left with 50% of what you have borrowed. In the meantime, you are going to a job. You are employed and all you're doing is you're servicing the minimum requirement of that credit card. Well, is this now a bad debt or is it a good debt? Some people will say it was a good debt. It was a good debt because I went on a holiday. Yeah. So good people, and you even met the love of your life at the holiday. So maybe it was good. In the context of what we are talking about today, not necessarily so. I would like to define good debt and bad debt as simple as if it is bad debt and it is taking money out of your pocket, it's bad debt. If it is good debt, so you've again borrowed the same amount of money, but this time round, you don't have to pay for it. Someone else or a system that you have developed is paying for it. In our case, we all love to invest in property. So the property itself is paying off for this credit card. Then it is a good debt. Yeah. So back to my story. When I was young, naive, and I thought I used to know how to manage money, I got into bad debt. Just over 5 million rand. And I dragged my wife into it as well. So for that reason, both of us were in bad debt. How did I figure out that I was in bad debt? Because none of the things that I was doing could be able to pay off the 5 million debt. So basically, it means that I had to look for an income elsewhere for me to pay off this bad debt. So yes, it was bad. Right. Now let's talk about the other way of looking at the same debt, but this time around we are classifying it as good debt. So we spoke about it in terms of what we define as bad debt. So debt is debt. But now you've got this other good debt. So what do we call that now? So let's just assume, again, you go out and you borrow plus minus, let's say 500,000 in this case. Within this 500,000, this money comes through into your back pocket and you go and buy a property. Within this property, now this property gives you a plus minus, let's say 10,000. Out of this 10,000, you now need to be paying to the bank that you've borrowed some money. Let's assume a 6,000, which basically means that you've got a profit on that debt of 4,000. Now, that's a good debt. And everyone is now wondering, where do you find these things that would give you the ability to be in good debt? Well, I will give you, right? So I'll give you another scenario, and within this scenario, basically, you go to the same bank again, you get debt of, let's say, 200, and you go and buy a vehicle. Within this vehicle, you then hire someone else, and this someone else now starts to go out there in the market, and they start doing deliveries or anything of that nature that will then be able to give you some income. So you now have an income of, let's say, maybe 20,000. Within this 20,000, you have borrowed, let's say, 2,000. Within, let's say, 200,000. Within this 200,000, now you are paying back on the debt of the 200,000. You're paying 2,000 rand. Now, is this a bad debt or good debt? You can testify. You see, can be good debt. In a nutshell, good debt is when actually you are making money work for you, but this money is not your money. It is the money that you have gotten through from a bank. It is the money that you have gotten through from someone else and things like that. Does it make sense? Now, once we go ahead with all of this conversation, I want to ask you a question. Have you been involved in good debt? And if so, what have been the initiatives that you have taken through to be receiving good debt? How much big can you go with good debt? The sky's the limit. For as long as you know how to manage this, the sky is the limit. Many companies are built on good debt. Why? The likes of the Amazons, the likes of Pick and Pay, I can go on and mention many companies that have strong debt. I can go on and mention companies that have good debt. I can go on to mention companies, huge companies, that will never touch debt at all. So the question that I want to ask of you is that whether you see this debt as good or bad, the defining moment of whether it becomes bad or good is whether it is bringing money to you or whether it is taking money from you. And if the answer is that it's taking away money from you, then it is a lesson that you probably do not understand how to use debt. So before it goes big, maybe you need to pay it off and then start to learn how best to manage debt. Because there's courses out there in terms of how to manage debt. And one of my greatest teachers, Robert Kiyosaki, says, do not ever go and get debt if you don't understand how to manage it, or if you've never been taught how to manage it. Debt is a double sword. It can either defend you or it can kill you. That's what it is. Well, again, I want to hear from you in the comments below. If you have been in bad debt, how did you get there? And are you making plans to get out? It is I, your boy. By the way, thanks for watching and keep on sharing. It is I, TJ. We'll check you out on the next video.